Pleased to rise today on the 73rd anniversary of the invasion of Normandy, Omaha Beach, and Sword Beach by 156,000 brave Americans who saved our freedom and liberty for the American people as well as all of Europe, who put to an end the reign of Adolf Hitler, and remind me every day as chairman of the Veterans Committee why I'm here in the United States Senate. And that's to see to it that we take care of those who have taken care of us. So somebody asked me this morning, was it coincidence that D-Day was 73 years ago today? I said it's divine providence that we're on the floor today paying back those brave 156,000 who've invaded those beaches today to make the Veterans Administration a more favorable agency than it is already. And I'm proud to be on the floor to lead part of the debate today with Senator Tester, my ranking member on the committee and my dear friend, on a bill that I think is of great significance. It's the Veterans Accountability Act and Whistleblower Protection Act. But, you know, the best quote was not one that I could come up with, or I doubt that John could come up with. The best quote really came up with by the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, the IAVA. When asked, they said, this is the strongest VA accountability measure that can be signed into law. I want to reiterate that. The strongest accountability measure of the VA that can be signed into law, which means that we're reaching into every corner of the problems the VA has existed over the last year or last years. We're making sure we make the corrections necessary to make the VA an accountable organization. And we're doing it in a bipartisan fashion together, Democrats and Republicans alike. As I've said very often, there aren't Republican casualties and Democratic casualties on the battlefields of war. There are American citizens who fought and died for this country. So there's no room for partisanship when it comes to providing them with the benefits that are necessary to see to it they get what they deserve. I want to thank all the members of the committee, in particular Ranking Member Tester for his work, Senator Moran, who did such great work for us on the accountability measures, Senator Rubio, who's not a member of the committee but did a great job in terms of accountability, and he'll speak later on the floor, as I'm sure others will, about this. We've had a great committee working for a long period of time. We passed a bill almost last year and then failed at the last few moments of the session to get it done, so we're back a second time. But we're back with a bill that's come to you unanimously from the Committee on Veterans Affairs, and I hope will leave this Senate floor unanimously, so we send a clear signal to all our veterans we're going to hold ourselves accountable for you. Now, what specifically does the legislation do that's important? One, it makes what President Trump referred to in the executive order about 3 weeks ago, the Department of Whistleblower Protection, a reality, and codifies it into law. Second, it removes many of the bureaucratic hurdles that currently are in place, making it easier for VA Secretary to remove employees who are of all departments in the VA who are found guilty of wrongdoing or misconduct. And I underscore found guilty of wrongdoing and misconduct. The bill shortens the removal process for all employees at VA and ensures an individual appealing removal from the VA is not kept on the VA's payroll indefinitely while they appeal it. The Department of Veterans Affairs Accountability and Whistleblower Act also prohibits the VA from awarding bonuses to employees found guilty of misconduct. The bill will remove Bureaucratic Merit System Protection Board from the appeals by the senior management and the top management of the Veterans Administration. The Department of Veterans Affairs Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act establishes the Office of Whistleblower Protection and Accountability to make it permanent in the United States of America. In essence, and very simply, this bill ensures and codifies into the law the accountability of this agency and its operation to the American people and to the veterans of the United States of America for all that they have done for each and every one of us. It's very important to appreciate that this does not come to us by some senator or some representative coming up with a bunch of crazy ideas at the last minute. This is a response to what we've seen happen over and over again over the past few years. Most, if not all, of the employees in the Veterans Administration are hardworking, dedicated, committed individuals. But there have been from time to time questions arisen about the handling of certain situations. The situation that took place in Phoenix, Arizona in terms of appointments. The rash number of suicides and mishandling of pharmaceuticals in the Atlanta office at Claremont, near where I am in my office in Atlanta, Georgia. The situation that took place in transfers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where people were transferred rather than disciplined and were paid their moving expenses and cost of living adjustments upward, all to get rid of somebody in one office but move them to another instead of handling them in the way they should have been, which is holding them accountable and making sure they work somewhere else. We took those instances where people had instances with themselves breaking the law and violating the law, and now we're now holding them accountable because of what's written into the VA Accountability and Whistleblower Act. Quite simply put, we've taken the worst performance in isolated cases in the past few years and done what's right. We've corrected where it needed to be corrected. We've illuminated it where it needed to be illuminated, and we've given the authority to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs and the employees under the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to discipline the people that work for them and hold them accountable for doing the wrong thing to do and encourage them to do the right thing. I reiterate, though, that we're not singling out an agency that has a large number of people who are not performing. We're singling out an agency that has had some situations where few employees have done some egregious things that need to be addressed. They were addressed but couldn't be addressed under the current status of the law, which now will be able to be addressed under the status of the new law and held accountable for their actions. You know, nothing happens when one person does it. Everything happens when people come together as a team. It's been a pleasure for me to have a great teammate in this effort, and that's John Tester from Montana. John and I've been on the committee. I've been on the committee 12 years. I think John's probably been on the committee 8 or 9. 8, is that right?
10.
We're on the committee. You're on the Veterans Affairs Committee, first of all, because you want to go. It's what we refer to as a B committee, which means it's the second tier. A lot of times it's a fill-in committee for members of the Senate or the House, but for me and for John, it's our principal and primary responsibility. We know to whom we owe everything, and that is our veterans that we owe everything. So John Tester has been a great teammate. He's been great to work with. He's helped us get through some difficult times of difficulty into some good times of common understanding and settlement, and I appreciate that very much. Now I want to ask John a question, and I want to ask John to tell me what the people of Montana are telling him about our Veterans Administration and the need for a stronger accountability in the VA of Montana. Tell us what they're saying in Montana, John.
Well, thank you, Chairman Isakson. And before I answer your question, I just want to echo and say thank you very much for your leadership on this committee. It has been great to work with you. You have a reputation of being a man of honesty and integrity and fair dealing, and you've once again lived up to that reputation. And I could not ask for a better chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee than you, and very much appreciate the work you've done on this bill. And I too want to thank Rubio, Moran, Shaheen, Blumenthal, Angus King, Donnelly, Baldwin, Duckworth. There's a number of folks on both sides of the aisle that have stepped up, some on the committee, some off the committee, who have done such a great job making sure we ended up here today. And you know, Chairman Isakson knows this. We got a bill over from the House, and we sat down together and we negotiated. We gave and took and massaged the bill. We ended up with a bill that probably Johnny would not have written and probably I wouldn't have written, but it's a bill that's going to work, and it's going to give the VA what they need to hold people accountable. And I also want to echo what Johnny said, that you know, the veterans across this country are very, very happy with the care they get at the VA, and it's because of the great people that are on the ground within the VA. But every once in a while, we get a bad apple, and the VA needs to be able to remove that bad apple, because that bad apple reflects poorly on everybody within the VA. And so this bill is about making sure the VA has the tool it needs to hold itself accountable and hold itself accountable to the veterans. And I will tell you, what I hear from the folks in Montana is how come it took so long? Well, we've been at this for a while. And I will tell you, it's I hope it's worth the wait, because I think we've got a good bill here. I think we've got a bill that really holds folks accountable while protecting workers' rights moving forward. And the VA is a different kind of animal than any other agency. You know, we owe it to the people who put it on the line for this country. And when things don't go just right, we got a problem. And we got a problem that needs to be fixed, and not fixed yesterday, fixed today. And because these folks have given their all to this country, and they've earned these benefits, these health care benefits. So we need to make sure that when they need them, they've got them, and there isn't any mistakes made. look, what I hear from the veterans in Montana also, whether it took so long, is how can we rebuild the VA to make it all it can be? And I think this bill is going to help with that too, by making sure that we have the best of the best there, by making sure that we have some training for our hospital administrators and be able to hire hospital administrators. That's part of this bill too, while holding the VA accountable when folks screw up in the areas of misconduct. So there's a bunch in this bill. This is a bill that I think is going to fit the needs of not only veterans in a rural or frontier state like Montana, but in more populated areas like Atlanta, Georgia. And I think it gives the Secretary of the VA the tools at his disposal to be able to make the VA as strong as it can possibly be. And I will tell you that this bill would not have happened without the good work of Johnny and his staff and my staff coming together and getting stuff done. So I think that this is one of the days in the Senate where we can look back and say folks came together as Democrats and Republicans and did the right thing for the veterans of this country. And Johnny, I'm curious to know from you what kind of stuff you're hearing in Georgia about this bill and bringing accountability to the VA.
Well, Senator Tester, like you, I get my best information at the Legion, the IAVA, and posts around my state. I'm a member of American Legion Post at Loganville, Georgia, and go every once in a while to the bar and get a drink just to find out what's going on. I find out more there in an hour of socializing than I find out by reading every newspaper in the United States of America. Let me tell you what some of the Legion organizations are saying, because these veteran service organizations are the voice of the American people who served in our military, and they're the people that communicate to us in the committee. The VFW wants the Secretary to weed out misperformers, and especially the criminals, regardless of whether the crime was committed on or off duty. VFW wants a bill passed because maintaining the status quo does not work for those who have borne the battle and borne the fight. They want to make sure that the VA holds their employees to the standard the veterans of America feel they have committed themselves as veterans serving in our military. The American Legion applauds this bipartisan effort to provide Secretary Shulkin the additional tools to increase accountability and address poor performance within the Department of Veterans Affairs. And I want to underscore there, because in the bill, John and I ensured that we motivated the management to understand it was their job to seek out non-performance and correct it before it ran amok. So this bill incentivizes the management of the Veterans Administration to find those employees who are not performing well and turn them around, and to reward those employees who are turning around to be the example they set for all the rest of the employees. The VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act will give Secretary Shulkin the authority he needs to hold the department employees responsible for their actions. We strongly agree with the Senate to take up the bill immediately and pass it, said Dan Caldwell, concerned American veterans of America. So once and for all around our state, our VSO organizations are getting a response to the questions they've asked of all of us, and that's what this bill does. John, there is some misinformation out there, though. There's some rumors flying around in Montana. There's some flying around in Georgia. Can you help clear up some of the errors of what's being said out there?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of misinformation about this bill, Johnny, and I'll tell you what this bill does not do. It does not trample on the workers' rights. This bill maintains the bargaining rights of union workers at the VA. I will tell you that one of the problems we had with the House-passed bill is that it did away with the ability of union members to use their bargaining process. This does not. It maintains them. It does not gut due process protections. In fact, keeps all the existing due process protections under current law. And unlike the House bill, it doesn't shorten or eliminate the appeals process for employees who are fired. Moreover, we provide a judicial review to employees who are directed to repay an unwarranted bonus, another protection. And finally, this bill does not allow VA supervisors to get away with firing anyone who just challenges them. Evidence is still required in order to take action, and that evidence must go through General Counsel for review before an action is proposed. So this is all critically important as we go forth to give accountability, but yet be able to protect the rights of the workers who are doing the job, and I think we found the sweet spot there. But more importantly than anything else in this bill, and it does a lot of things, it's really about a culture of accountability in the VA. And Johnny, can you tell us here in the Senate about what else this bill does for veterans.
I want to talk about the culture for just a second that you just mentioned, because you're exactly right. I think the main thing the American people are going to see from the Veterans Administration now is a culture throughout that organization of excellence to serve the veterans the way they should be served, and wherever there might be an isolated problem, to make sure it's sought out, it's rooted out, and it's corrected within the agency. Our veterans deserve the highest quality care, and Secretary Shulkin has asked for more authority to hold those accountable that are not meeting standards. He also wants to recognize and illuminate those who have not only met but exceeded standards as well. This bill gives VA the authority to expedite the removal of a bad employee, but it doesn't motivate them to get rid of people. It gives them the parameters by which people should be dealt with if in fact they are behaving poorly. It shortens the process to remove an employee to 15 days. That doesn't mean that you act recklessly and quickly. It actually means that you act expeditiously to see to it that if you have a problem, it's addressed quickly for the benefit of all the agency. It removes the Merit System Protection Board from the appeal process for senior executives. There's some bad talk out there about removing the Merit System Protection Board for all employees. It doesn't do that at all. But the most senior employees of the Veterans Administration deserve to be held accountable without lots of hoops that you have to go through before ever getting to them. So by taking the Merit System Protection Board away from those senior executives, you're holding them totally accountable in the bright light of day for their own actions without some hoop to go through for the agency to try and remove them. Prohibits bonuses and relocation expenses for employees guilty of wrongdoing. I mentioned in my earlier remarks, and I just reiterate it again, this deals with things like what happened in Pennsylvania, where 2 employees were reassigned for a discipline, but yet they were given bonuses and cost of living adjustments in their pay upward for doing something wrong. That sends exactly the wrong signal to any employee in the Veterans Administration. For anyone who is doing a good job, it pats them on the back and lets them know they can do an even better job. And it expedites the hiring of VA Medical Center directors, which is absolutely critical. We've got far too many people in the VA healthcare system today that are acting. They're acting director or acting assistant or acting. We don't need any more acting in the Veterans Administration. We need performance. And that's what this bill ends up being about, is the performance of delivery of quality health care to our veterans, rewarding those employees who are doing a good job, encouraging those who aren't to do a better job, and seeing to it that all American veterans get the services they deserve to get. The need for this bill does not come out of thin air. Senator Tester, can you tell me about what the VA and veterans need this legislation to strengthen their accountability at their VA?
I sure can. You know, I talked previously about this. It's been a while. It's been 3 years, and we've talked about this accountability issue and a lot in the Veterans Affairs Committee and a lot here on the floor. And I think the context is important for folks who do make the claim that there's no need for this particular bill. We're simply playing politics. That couldn't be further from the truth. If you remember back in August in 2014, in response to systemic failures in the Veterans Health Administration, the Senate overwhelmingly passed the Veterans Access, Choice, and Accountability Act 2014. We're both members of the committee back then. We both helped draft that bill. It passed by a vote of 91-3. And as my colleagues on the Veterans Affairs Committee are well aware, the bill included provision to hold senior executives at the VA more accountable. That provision was in response to multiple reports from both the Obama administration and an independent VA IG, Inspector General, documenting the need to bring greater accountability to the VA. While much of the attention has been focused on senior level employees, hospital administrators and the like, there are employees across the system who need to be effectively held accountable for misconduct and inappropriate behavior. Last Congress, the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee reported bipartisan legislation that would give the VA greater authority to improve accountability for all employees. Unfortunately, we never got floor time for that bill. This Congress, the House passed a VA accountability bill that, at least in my view, needed some fixing. And I appreciate that my Republican colleagues worked closely with me on these changes, and we got to the point today. But make no mistake about it, veterans in Montana and all the major veteran service organizations support giving the VA the authority to expedite disciplining and firing bad employees. Let me say that one more time. Every major veteran service organization support giving the VA the authority to expedite disciplining or firing bad employees. And the President and VA Secretaries both McDonald and Shulkin have asked for this authority. Former VA Secretary McDonald, in fact, had repeatedly asked Congress to give him the tools that he needs to hold employees accountable. Secretary Shulkin has followed and done the same. And so we've got this bill up today, and I just want to end where I started. And that is to thank Chairman Isakson for his leadership, his willingness to work together in a bipartisan way, to reach a compromise and make collaboration a good word again, to get to a point where we can get a bill, as the IAVA said, that can pass, and that can pass the Senate, and that hopefully will pass the Senate within the next few hours. So thank you, Chairman Isakson.
Well, Senator Tester, thank you. And, as I started my remarks a few minutes ago by referring to this be the 73rd anniversary of D-Day, nobody that charged Omaha Beach or climbed those cliffs at Normandy had second thoughts about what they were doing, or asked questions about their leadership, or tolerated anything but the best they could out of themselves. And because of that, they won. Today, our veterans are winning. Our committee and this Senate is going to pass in I think, a unanimous or near to unanimous fashion, a piece of legislation that's a byproduct of a good bipartisan effort to see to it that we corrected the problems of the past, gave the Secretary of the VA the ability to do it in the future, and if he or she doesn't do it, us the ability to change them so they're held accountable as well. So it's been a pleasure to work with you and a privilege to work for our veterans. And on this special day that we honor those who served America 73 years ago by the beginning of the end of World War II, thank them for their service and thank all veterans who provided service to the people of the United States of America. And I go to a quorum call, I guess. No, I don't. We got a speaker ready to speak in just a second. I want to end by noting that we have 32 sponsors of this legislation, which is almost exactly 1/3 of the United States Senate, Republican and Democrat alike. That sends the proper signal. This is the right bill at the right time for the right people, the veterans of the United States of America. And I yield back.